Okay, so in Sefer Ha-Aggadah, page 46, we're still reading about Moshe Rabbeinu, and this time Moshe is already in the palace. It's another famous story that the teachers love telling the kids in school. And the Midrash says the following: הייתה בת פרעה מנשקת ומחבקת ומחבבת אותו כאילו הוא בנה, ולא הייתה מוציאתו מפלטרין של מלך. The daughter of Pharaoh, the princess, loves Moshe so much, she would shower him with affection and love as if he was her own son, which most probably she didn't have another son. Was that why she was willing to adopt him, and she would never take him out of the palace. That probably is based on the pasuk that later on we read that the Torah says that when Moshe Vayigdal Moshe Vaytzeh Lechav lirot b'sivlotam, he went out to see what his brethren are doing. So he never left the premises of the palace, except for the early years. Except for the early years when he was nursed by Yocheved. So this is something that sometimes when we read the Torah, we overlook that. When Miriam tells the princess, we'll call the princess, right? When she tells her, do you want me to get you a wet nurse, someone who would breastfeed the child? So we think that she was going to bring the woman into the palace to be with the daughter of Pharaoh. No, but she says, "Helichi et hayeled hazeh ve'nikiu li, vayigdal hayeled v'teveu levat Paro." So she said, take the kid, take care of it until he is weaned, and then bring him to me. So that means also, by the way, interesting that probably during the time that Yocheved took care of Moshe, she had preferential treatment. She had she might have had privileges since she's becoming the caregiver for the adopted child of the daughter of Pharaoh. So it's an important status. She might have had royal guards in the neighborhood, watching over them. But that gave her the opportunity because we don't know what the exact age that she brought him to Bat Paro. Could have been 3 years, could have been 5 years. Because when the weaning period for children at the time was between 2 to 3 years. So, and she could have left him for a little older age. So, and during that time, during these years, this is where she really inculcated in him the whole concept of who we are, where we come from. That's why he knew that his brothers, that the Israelites, are slaves and they're working in the fields. Actually, this was nicely captured in the Prince of Egypt, the movie, the children's movie, where they have Bat Paro singing, not Bat Paro, Yocheved singing a lullaby to Moshe as a baby, and she tells him the whole story through a song. It's a beautiful piece. It's Ha-Aggadah is singing that song in the movie. Yeah, it's her. The first time I watched the movie, I said, I know that voice, and I checked, like, Ha-Aggadah. It's a very, very nice. Really.
YouTube, the Prince of the...
Oh, I don't know if on YouTube, but you probably, if not on Netflix, you'll find it somewhere. No, it's in English. It's in English. It's an animated movie, but very nice, very nicely done. Anyway, the Midrash says she raises him in the palace, and everybody's like running around this lovely child. They can't take their eyes off him. He's so such a wonderful kid. But then things get out of hand when the king takes and puts him on his lap and kisses him, and then Moshe, as a baby, takes the crown of Pharaoh's head and puts it on his own head, right? Which is it's a wonderful story. The kids love it. The kids love to think of that situation where what starts as a innocent play with all of a sudden becomes ominous. It's a threat because all the counselors say, you see, he reaches for the throne. He wants to usurp the throne and depose you. So they devised a plan. They say, let's see. Some of the council said, we don't. There isn't even a doubt. He's a threat to you, and therefore he should be executed. Some wanted to kill him, some wanted to burn him. That's what it says. That midrash brings Yitro into the palace, even though we have no knowledge that he was connected. And it says, try him, see if he understands what he's doing. So bring a plate with a burning coal and a chunk of gold, and see what is he going to reach for. And if he reaches for the gold, then he understands what he's doing, and so it means that also reaching for the crown was deliberate. If not, then it's just a kid. So they bring the plate, and Moshe is about to reach out and touch the gold, and then the angel Gabriel comes and pushes his hand, and he holds the coal, and as kids do, he puts the coal into his mouth and burns his tongue, and that's why he becomes what we think later. He has a speech impediment and he stutters. So this is the whole thing is a Midrash Shemot Rabbah, which is relatively a late Midrash, somewhere between the 7th to the 10th century. With a couple of interesting things here. When you think of the Midrash in real life, like how possible it is. If you look at the pictures of we find from the hieroglyphs, we have depictions of the Egyptian kings. Their crown was not the round European crown that we think of, a gold circle with diamonds, whatever it is. The Egyptian crown was a very complicated one. It was combined of two crowns. One was like a white cone, almost a cone, like half that goes up, and then on top of it, like a tiara that depicts a cobra or a snake. And one of them was the crown of Lower Egypt, and the other one was the crown of Upper Egypt. And for a while, those two kingdoms were separate, and each king had his own crown. Then when they had the United Kingdom, the first United Kingdom was not England, it was Egypt. It's called the United Kingdom. So the crown of that UK was those two on top of each other. This is not something that is easily removed, and so maybe he just reached to the crown to touch it, but not the way the Midrash says that he put it on his head. So this is a Midrash that seems on its face it comes to explain why was Moshe stuttering. As a matter of fact, we don't know that Moshe had a speech impediment. That's a later discussion. We know. No, we don't know.
They give a reason, right?
No, Moshe never says. We took it to mean when Moshe says "Kavad pe ukvad lashon anochi," right? That Moshe says I'm stuttering. Everybody think that is the meaning of that. Rabbi Avraham ben Ezra, when he deals with this question, he says that I think it's Ibn Ezra says that Moshe Rabbeinu had a problem with the with the lips. So all the letters that are related to the lips, which are Bumav, Bet Vev, Bet Vav, Mem Pei, he had a difficulty pronouncing, and therefore when he came and told Bnei Israel, Hashem said, "Pakod pakadet yetchem v'te'asu lachem b'Mitzrayim." There was a promise that Yaakov told his children, Hashem will redeem you. Hashem will take you out of Egypt, right? And he said, someone will come and say these words, Pakod pakadati. So the question was raised, so anyone could have come and said that. So now the answer to that is Moshe, who had the speech impediment and couldn't say pei or bet or mem and vav, and all of a sudden when he has to say this phrase, Pakod pakadati, he's healed for that particular one, then that was the sign that he's the true messenger. But there's another way to see the pasuk. This is really not related to the midrash, but just a different way to look at the pasuk. When Moshe Rabbeinu says "Kevad pe ukvad lashon anochi," there is a way to understand it as He says, I'm not a diplomat. I'm not the one. You want me to go and talk to Pharaoh? I cannot talk to Pharaoh. So either it means I will be embarrassed to talk to him. I will not be the right person to talk to him, right? And that's why Hashem answers, "Hine Aharon achicha, yadati ki daber yedaber hu." He doesn't say, "I know that here's Aaron, your brother. I know that he's capable of talking." As in, he's not. He has no impediments, no flaws. He says he's a talker. He could talk. Take him with you, and he will be your representatives. But the other way to understand what is the difficulty for Moshe to speak when he says, "How am I going to talk to Pharaoh?" is that he says, "I'm very straightforward, kaved in the sense of heavy blows." He says, "I'm not going to embellish things and beat around the bush as politicians do. I'm going to tell Pharaoh things as they are." And that is really what happened later on with God. That the reaction of Pharaoh to the request of easing the burden of slavery was making it even harder. And then the Israelites complained to Moshe. And then what happens? Moshe comes to Hashem and says, "Lama averot al-am hazeh, lama shalachthani?" Why did you make this people suffer even more? So Moshe is aggressive in a way, even with God. So I think that's the meaning of kevad peh kevad lashon. That it means like I could be a little aggressive in my in the way I talk to people. And then we see later on that really Moshe refines this art of negotiation. He negotiates with Hashem to save Bnei Israel over and over and over again. But he has also this quality of sometimes getting
doesn't beat around the bush.
No, he doesn't. Right. Exactly that. That's why he went to the burning bush. He went to the burning bush. Okay. There's another thing here, and that is really, I think, the focus of the Midrash is extremely important. The Midrash tells us, just like we said when we spoke about the righteous women who saved Moshe, that raising Moshe in the palace was not a simple thing. That yes, they got over this, this phase of, if you try to get into the palace and think, what is happening there? So as long, but Pharaoh was able to somehow cajole her father and convince him into, this is what I want this baby, I want to raise him, is mine. Fine. She goes on with that, and is cute, and everybody's around him, but then he grows older, and he grows more intelligent and more independent, and then Pharaoh starts seeing him as a threat. It's whatever this story didn't really have to take place as it's described here, the test between the gold and the coal. But the concept is there. Obviously, at a certain point, the counselors or Pharaoh himself, they look at Moshe and they say, wow, this kid is going to grow. He's an outsider. He's not Egyptian. And we know that he descends from slaves. And he lives in the palace. At a certain point, he will be able to assume a position of power, and that will be a threat to us. And this is really what happened. How do we know that? I mean, that's the subliminal message of the Torah that not always we see. When Moshe confronts the Egyptian taskmaster and kills him, right? That was still something that was not made public, not right away. Only on the second day, when he went and he tried to separate to break a fight between two Hebrews, and they said, "You want to kill me the same way you killed the Egyptian," and they also tell him, "You yourself, you're not an Egyptian. How dare you kill him?" And then the Torah says, "Vayishma Paro et hadavar hazeh, vayevakesh la'arog et Moshe." When Paro heard that this is what happened, he wanted to kill Moshe. And then Moshe had to run away to flee to Midian, and he found himself by the well. So this is, I think we always read that, and we take it for granted. Yes, if Moshe committed murder, the king would want to execute him. But this is so incongruent with the way we know government and government works, and slave mentality or slave ownership works. If the prince, right, the son of the king, or even if it's the adoptive son of the king, went out to see what is going on, and he decided to take justice into his hand and kill someone, he's not going to stand trial. He will be absolved right away because he's royalty. We see it much later in the time of the Talmud. Not Talmud, the time of the Mishnah, at the time of Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach and King Yanai. This is about 60 before the Common Era. The Gemara says that one of the servants of the king, King Yanai, was at odds with the rabbis. He was of the house of Hashmonai, was a descendant of the Maccabim, so he viewed himself as a scholar in his own right. So at a certain was an incident where one of his servants committed murder, right? Avdeh de Yanai Malka Katil Gavra. So he killed the person. He was summoned to court. He comes to court, and Shimon ben Shattach was the head of the Sanhedrin, the head of the court, and he says to the rabbis who were sitting with him, now we're going to start the proceedings. And they were reluctant, they're afraid, they don't want to deal with the king. Meanwhile, the king comes and sits in the court, where according to law, he has to stand up. So now he's defiant of the court. In front of the Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach, he says, I'm not going to stand. Meaning you have no authority over me. So Shimon ben Shattach says, Amod al raglecha ve'edu b'cha, stand up. He doesn't stand up. The rabbi looks to the right, looks to the left. All the rabbis are like, one is correcting his text. They don't see what's going on. They don't want to get involved. So one version of the story says that they all died. All those rabbis who refused to do justice died. But in the end, Shimon ben Shattach had to flee to Egypt, of all places. He fled to Egypt, and he was only brought back because his sister was married to the king. Shlom Tzion HaMalka, the famous Shlom Tzion, was married to the king. But this is...
People rebelled against Yanai.
They tried to rebel against Yanai, but he killed them. He killed the rebels also. He was a murderous king. Yeah. Shishim Ayarot, some say like 60 villages.
Where he poured
some say he was right. Some say he was the Kohen Gadol who poured the water on his feet. Right, it's a complicated story. In any case, we see from and if you think of other examples, if a prince or royalty commits a crime, usually he gets this kind of diplomatic or royal immunity. They will not prosecute him. With Moshe, it's different. וישמע פרעה את הדבר הזה, ויבקש להרוג את משה. So ויבקש means he wanted, but also means ויבקש, it was his desire. Meaning that Paro was just waiting for the opportunity to get Moshe. He says, as long as, he grew in the palace, my daughter wanted him here, he's an imminent threat to my kingdom, but I can't get rid of him because of my daughter's custody over him. But the moment he does something wrong, I'm going to nab him. And this is exactly what happened. This is why Moshe, when he kills the Egyptian, Paro wants to execute him right away, and he has to flee Egypt. So all that, when we go back to the Midrash, even if the story didn't happen the way we read it, that he's playing with Paro, he's touching the throne, symbolically, this is what really Moshe had to live through, being a constant threat to Paro in the palace.
He understood keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
Yeah, Paro understood that, but even though he kept his enemies, if he looks at Moshe as an enemy, at a certain point he knows that he wouldn't be able to control him.
Right.
So for that, because of that, he wanted to execute him. Yeah, and get rid of the threat.
How the rabbi feels that he grew up in an Egyptian house, Moshe?
They rebuke him. They rebuke him for that at least once when he saves the daughters of Yitro, and they call him Ish Mitzri, and they say, "Why did you say that you're not Egyptian?" But other than that, we don't find a major reference to that, except for the much later midrashim that are brought in Me'am Lo'ez. This is maybe 9th century midrashim that describe Moshe for this whole period. What did he do when he was at the house of Pharaoh, at the palace? They say he became the king of Ethiopia. He went to war, conquering lands for Egypt all over the world. But again, none of that is corroborated, and it seems like just people kept on embellishing on the character of Moshe.